Hey, sorry about that, everybody. I started a new video, hoping to get a better feed on my end. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So sorry about that. Just having some technical difficulties. I've closed out all my windows on my computer. I've recently restarted. I don't know. Sorry about that, everybody. I'll give y'all a minute to come back to me. You were there. Sorry. Okay, I've got 4, which I think is about what I had before I started a new video. Sorry, gosh. I closed everything out, making sure I don't have any. Maybe I need to power supply. Maybe that will help also. All right. Oh, Tori, Clark, Chris. It's doing the weird bounce back thing that it was doing on Sunday that was distracting me so terribly. But oh well. It's better than it was that day, at least. I don't have like myself making weird faces at myself all of a sudden. I'll turn it to a different window so that I don't have to see myself. But then I can't, if I turn it to a different window, then I can't see your comments to me, what you're saying to me. Tiffany, hi. Okay, so here's my question. I want to know if I'm alone in this. Am I the only one who's having trouble reading lately? I find in this whole COVID mess that sorry, I'm getting texts and I need to silence them. I find that in this whole COVID mess, I'm just having trouble focusing on reading, and for sure having trouble reading anything that's serious or hefty, weighty, that takes a great deal of concentration to really delve into or comprehend or retain. It won't load. Well, here we are. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Anyway, I've been having trouble and I've been feeling sad about that, but really trying to practice my non-dual consciousness and not judge it. So I've been reading a lot of, Deshna says I'm reading only fiction right now. And me too. I've been just reading a lot of very lighthearted fiction. And I've also I have been binge watching this show called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and I just freaking love that show. It is so hilarious to me, and every episode contains a couple of musical numbers, and Rachel Bloom is the star of it and also the creator of it, and I just think she's brilliant and real and authentic. Oh, Clan of the Cave Bear, I read those and I loved them. So I'm trying to give myself grace for not feeling like I can really get through some of the heftier reading that I want to get through, which like up on my nightstand are The Body Keeps the Score, which is the book by, of course, I'm not going to recall his name off the top of my head. It's anyway, Body Keeps the Score. I'm slowly working through it. I'm also slowly working through Karen Gonzalez's book. I think it's called The God Who Sees. You love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend? Oh my gosh. My mom got me on it and I was so skeptical, but oh my gosh. I laugh. I love it. I laugh. I love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So I'm in season 4 and I know that I'm like close to the end and I don't know, what am I going to do? So anyway, I haven't been reading a lot except for very lighthearted things, but I did want to share with you this morning because I do have a high value for being a lifelong learner, and I have the intention throughout my life to always be learning and growing and to be a perpetual student throughout my life, and to always kind of stick close to that beginner's mind of I'm just a learner here. I can always start at the beginning Same. I find myself cackling alone like a crazy person, says Betsy. Me too. Sometimes Jordan watches it with me and he thinks it's funny too. I know that it's silly and awesome. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. I just wanted to share a few books with you all that have really shaped me as a person of faith over the last 10 years-ish. And I want to share this with you with a lot of humility, particularly in terms of the diversity of reading. So my top 5 books that have shaped my faith, probably from 2010 to 2016, I would say, are primarily written by white folks. And I just wasn't as awake then as I am now to my own need to get diverse voices into my head. I just wasn't as awake to that. And now I am. And so now I'm trying to be much more intentional about reading voices of color, particularly women of color, and bringing those experiences and with that wisdom into my field here. But the ones that shaped me early on, because I'm a white person and I grew up in a predominantly like white faith experience, were the voices of white men, because those are the ones that dominate in that segment of culture. Those are the dominant voices. And probably if we're white, we can probably echo something like that. Like the majority of what we read before we woke up was from white men. But I don't want to throw those voices out. I want to, I'm practicing gratitude for those as well, because I believe that some of those voices set me on the path, or helped to set me on the path that I'm on now, in which I'm reading more diversely, and more just with other priorities in mind. So if you want to drop in the comments some books that have shaped you, I would love to know, what are books at any point in your life that you can look back on and remember and think of as, this book was a turning point for me. So I have a few here that I want to share. And the first one that I want to share with you about, I can't find my copy of it. I must have loaned it out to someone, but it is Surprised by Hope by N.T. Wright. I read that book in 2012. Actually, the two that I read in 2012 that were very formative books for me, which were Surprised by Hope by N.T. Wright and The Great Emergence by Phyllis Tickle. Did I read that in 2012? No, I didn't. I read The Great Emergence later. Okay, 2012 was N.T. Wright. I know that for sure. And that book is a fairly dense theological tome, but at the moment that I read it, I was really hungry for a broader and more positive and joyful and hopeful theology. I knew that the theology that I had grown up with and had been taught it wasn't enough to keep me in the game. It wasn't enough to even keep me being a Christian. And I think Surprised by Hope by N.T. Wright was a book. If I hadn't read that book in 2012, I think I would have diverted away from Christianity, because he lays out the hope of Jesus so beautifully. Oh, Clark says Falling Upward by Richard Rohr. That's a great book. That is such a great book. Okay. So the next book was The Great Emergence by Phyllis Tickle. And that book has helped me immensely over the years. Once again, I cannot find my copy of it. I must have loaned it out. But in that book, she explains from a historical perspective the era that we are in now, in terms of historical Christianity and in terms of the cycles of growth that religions take historically. And it helped me so much to understand what is happening here. And she says that we are in the midst of the great emergence. And the book was a great comfort to me, but also a great challenge for me. And so she was huge for me. And she's very prophetic in that book in pointing out, she died in 15, I believe. And I think I read the book in like 16 or sometime shortly after she died. That book helped me. It helped me to just stick with any kind of Christianity. So, N.T. Wright, Surprised by Hope, Great Emergence by Phyllis Tickle. Those are both white people. Fortunately, Phyllis Tickle is a woman. Other books that I want to mention as sort of my top ones that I really look back on as turning points in my life were this book by Brian Zahnd, Beauty Will Save the World by Brian Zahnd. Once again, I can recognize over the course of my life that I was hungry for a winsome and beautiful theology, a theology that draws us in by its beauty and that doesn't coerce us via fear. And this book really helped me articulate that. And this book also really helped me articulate part of my own like mission on the earth as a person who loves beauty and strives to create beauty. Zahnd is an evangelical, so I don't necessarily agree with him on all of his theological points, but he lays out this beautiful vision of a winsome theology. And this book helped me. It really helped me. And I'm so glad that I read this book before a whole lot of shit in my life hit the fan, because then I was more capacious vessel because I already had this winsome theology. Joyce says David's reading the Zahnd book right now. David and I have talked a little bit about that, and I think I recommended it to him, if I'm not remembering incorrectly. I would love to talk more with anyone who wants to talk about this book. Okay. These two were so influential in my journey towards contemplative faith and towards mysticism. Okay, I'm putting them together because I read them in quick succession. And okay, I read Rohr's, this is Father Rohr's The Naked Now. I read this in 2015. I was experiencing a lot of emotional turmoil. My family was in a really rough time, my extended family. And I clung to this book for dear life. This is the book that made me a meditator. This is the book that made me the person who gets up and meditates just about every day. Rohr taught me in this book about non-dualism, which is a core tenet of my faith today. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. Now, Father Rohr obviously is a Franciscan Catholic Christian, and he largely speaks about mysticism. The subtitle of the book is Learning to See as the Mystics See, and he speaks about it from a Christian mysticism perspective, but he's able to use that framework with which to embrace many different forms of mysticism, which is what led me to The Power of Now, which is more of like a modern, I don't know, maybe it would fit in some sort of new age category. I don't know. I think it transcends boundaries. I think this book on the heels of this book just helped me drive home some essential points that I really needed. And once again, they're both about the now. They're both about embracing the present moment, which is eternity. So I can't recommend these enough, particularly The Naked Now. And gosh, This book changed my life. I would not be the person that I am if I hadn't read The Naked Now in 2015. Okay. I think I read this in 16 or 17. This is Sue Monk Kids, The Dance of the Dissonant Daughter. And this book was incredibly instrumental for me in terms of my feminine awakening, in terms of my coming into my, and I'm not done with this journey. Okay. I'm not done with this journey, but in terms of me learning to come to my own true self, my own power, my own journey with the sacred feminine, my own learning to see the divine reflected inside my own feminine experience. Oh man, I know so many people for whom this book, the subtitle is A Woman's Journey from Christian Tradition to the Sacred Feminine. This, like, I think if, like, you can't, I don't know what to say about this book, except especially if you're women, you got to read this to help liberate yourself from whatever. Oh, I'm seeing some of you have read this. Please read this if you haven't. It will open your eyes. It will change you. It will empower you. And so this was very, very instrumental. All right. Those are kind of ones that I can look back on and say, ooh, that was a turning point in my life. But this is a little bit in a different vein. Again, it's a white man. I'm humbly acknowledging that. And I'm humbly remedying it now in the last few years in terms of my reading. I really try to read much more diverse voices, not because the voices of white men, are not good and helpful, but because I recognize the need for a broader, more robust vision and experience getting into my consciousness. This creates compassion. This creates empathy. This helps us become allies to this helps us wake up to our privileges if we're privileged white folks. This does so many things. And I will tell you a couple that I've been reading lately that have been super transformative. Let me stop and pause here. This is The Art of the Commonplace, The Agrarian Essays of Wendell Berry. I read this a long time ago, at least 10 or 15 years ago. This was what made me an environmentalist. This book made me a person who cares about the earth. If you want to know how I got to be a person who cares about plastic and is a vegan and watches documentaries about environmental issues, this is why. It's all Wendell Berry's fault from 15 years ago. Okay. If you haven't read Brene Brown, you must. This was one of the first ones I read, daring greatly. I don't think there's any one more influential person in terms of faith circles right now, or just being emotionally and psychologically healthy than Brene Brown. If nothing else, go on Netflix and watch her special. You must get some Brene Brown. She's doing revolutionary work. And then I guess just from a strictly me as a pastor of worship and liturgy, this was a very influential book. This is by Sandra Maria van Opstal. She is a Latina worship leader. I believe she is or was when she wrote this book in Chicago. She wrote this book, The Next Worship, Glorifying God in a Diverse World. And this helped wake me up to a lot of issues of diversity in terms of leading congregational worship. Other books that I've read lately are James Cone's The Cross and the Lynching Tree, which also I don't have a copy of right now. I actually think I borrowed Aurelia's copy and I need to purchase one of my own. That book is non-negotiable. You got to read it. You got to read. If you want to know what we're talking about when we start talking about liberation theology, I think Aurelia talked about the cross and the lynching tree a week or two ago in a coffee with the pastor. So go back and listen to it. Very, very important book. Very transformative book for me. Opened my eyes. I also have recently read Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy. Very eye-opening, very awakening, very consciousness-raising book. Very important book for me. And I also read Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And Stevenson's book and Kendi's books together have helped me to understand that faith is inherently political, which I don't think that I grasped that as much. I think I would have given assent to that, but I don't think I grasped it quite as much. So that's a smattering of books that have made it deeply into my soul, that were, for whatever reason, unforgettable for me. I will put a list of what I've mentioned here in the comments. Anyway, I would love to hear in the comments, or you can DM me or whatever, what books have transformed you? What books have you read that are unforgettable for you, that were a turning point for you, that brought you into a new level of consciousness? And, my hope and my prayer for our community is that we are a people who are lifelong learners and who are able to say with humility that we have a beginner's mind. And when we realize, oh crap, all I've been reading all my life was Whiteman, we're able to turn the corner and go, oh, there's this diversity of voices. On my list to read is Caitlin Curtis has a new book coming out called Native, that's about Indigenous faith and spirituality and experience. So I want to get Indigenous voices into my consciousness and Latinx voices into my consciousness and Black folks' voices into my consciousness and diverse places in the world and Asian voices into my consciousness. So I'm going to do better about that. And I am doing better. I'm doing better. Anyway, I love you all. See you later. Have a great day.